only tonight it's a little bit different. It may not be quite as relaxing as it normally would, and that is because in honor of Halloween, Day of the Dead, we will be reading scary stories to tell in the dark. So, if you are not already a fan, scary stories to tell in the dark is written by Alvin Schwartz. These are stories collected by Alvin Schwartz, and the drawings are by Stephen Campbell. Now, when I was younger, probably back in the 90s or so, I would check these books out all the time from the library, and they had these really creepy pictures. Like, let's find an example. Here's creepiers. Even the beginning is kind of creepy. Things like this, kind of creepy. So, all of the illustrations in this book were in there when I was younger, but over the years, as time passed, they replaced the really creepy pictures with more like cartoony, appropriate pictures that weren't quite as scary, which kind of defeats the purpose of reading scary stories. It seems like everybody just wants to shield their kids from absolutely everything, which I get. But these just happen to be my son's books because he likes his scary stories as much as his mama did. So there are 3 scary story books in this collection, and these are the ones that you can find, and I believe that you can find them probably on Amazon or something, but you have to say original artwork if you want the really creepy drawings. So they are sectioned into different types of categories, move through the kitchen, into the dining room, and into the living room, down the front hall, then slowly climbing the stairs. Step, step, step. Where is my toe? The voice groaned. His door opened. Shaking with fear, he listened to the footsteps as they slowly moved through the dark and towards the bed, and then it stopped. Where is my toe? The voice groaned. You have it! That's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to scare you. It says, at this point, pause the story and then jump at the person next to you and shout, you have it. I can't really shout because this is ASMR. So I'll just whisper really, really loud. You have it. Anyways. So we'll skip the jumpy stories. You guys have an idea of what they sound like. There's a few of them in there. Let's find a decent looking. There's a really creepy picture of a really creepy woman. So we are going to go ahead and read that. By the way, this book is a collection of lots of little stories. So when you read it, of course, I mean, it says scary stories. It's all in the title. Common sense. Okay. One time a preacher went to go see if he could put a haunt to rest at a house in his settlement. The house had been haunted for about 10 years, and several people had tried to stay there all night, but they had always gotten scared by the haunt. So this preacher took his Bible and went to the house, and he went on in. He built himself a good fire and lit a lamp and sat there reading his Bible. Just before midnight, he heard something start up the cellar, walking back and forth and back and forth. Then it sounded like somebody was trying to scream and got choked off. Then there was a lot of thrashing around and struggling, and finally everything got quiet. The old preacher took up his Bible again, but before he could start reading, he heard footsteps coming from the cellar stairs. He sat watching the door to the cellar, and footsteps kept coming closer and closer and closer. And he saw the doorknob turn, and when the doorknob began to open, he jumped and hollered, "What do you want?" The door shut back easy-like, and there wasn't a single sound. The preacher was trembling a little, but he finally opened the Bible to read it a while. Then he got up and laid the book on the chair and went to mending the fire. Then the haunt started walking again. And step, step, step up the cellar stairs. There goes another creepy thing coming. Then the haunt started. The old preacher sat watching the door, saw the doorknob turn and open. It looked like a young woman. He backed up and said, "Who are you, and what do you want?" This is the woman that he saw again, with her nice creepy face. The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do. Then she just faded out. Let's start that over. The haunt sort of swayed like she didn't know what to do, and then she just faded out. The old preacher waited, and he didn't hear any more noises. He went over to shut the door, and he was sweating and trembling all over. But he was a brave man, and he thought that he'd be able to see it through. So he turned his chair where he could watch, and he sat down, and he waited. It wasn't long before he heard the haunt start up again, slowly, step, 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 closer and closer and closer. preacher stood up and held his Bible out before him, and then the knob slowly turned and the door opened wide. This time the preacher spoke quiet-like. He said, "In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, who are you, and what do you want?" The haunt came right across the room, straight to him, and took a hold of his coat. It was a young woman about 20 years old. Her hair was torn and tangled. The flesh was dropping off her face. I'm making myself tired. The flesh was falling off her face, so he could see the bones and parts of her teeth. She had no eyeballs, but there was sort of a blue light way back in her eye sockets. Then she started talking. It sounded like her voice was coming and going with the wind. She told how her lover had killed her for her money and buried her in the cellar. She said if the preacher would dig up her bones and bury her body properly, that she could rest. Then she told him to take the end joint of the little finger from her left hand and lay it in a collection plate. Lay it in the collection plate at church next Sunday. And then he'd find out who had murdered her. And she said, if you come back here once more after that, you'll hear my voice at midnight, and I'll tell you where your money is hidden. Oh, goodness. You must be yawning a lot over there, because I keep yawning. Anyways, if you come back to the house here once more, you'll hear my voice at midnight, and I'll tell you where my money is hidden, and you can give it to the church. The haunt sobbed like she was so tired, and she sunk down to the floor, and then she was gone. The preacher found her bones and buried them in the graveyard. The next Sunday, preacher put the finger bone in the collection plate, and then a certain man happened to touch it. It stuck to his hand. The man jumped and rubbed and scraped and tore at the bone trying to get it off. Then he went to screaming like he was going crazy. Well, he confessed to the murder, and then they took him to the jail. After the man was hung, the preacher went back to the house one midnight, and the haunt's voice told him to dig under the hearth rock. He did, and he found a big sack of money, and where that haunt had held his coat, the print of those bony fingers was burned right into the cloth, and it never did come out. So, then they've got some short poems or songs. This is called the Hearse Song. Don't ever laugh as a hearse goes by, for you may be the next to die. They wrap you up in a big white sheet, from your head all down to your feet. They put you in a big black box and cover you up with dirt and rocks. All goes well for about a week, and then your coffin begins to leak. The worms crawl in and the worms crawl out. The worms play pinochle on your snout. They eat your eyes, they eat your nose, they eat the jelly between your toes. A big green worm with rolling eyes crawls in your stomach and out your eyes. Your stomach turns a slimy green, and pus pours out like whipping cream. You spread it on a slice of bread, and that's what you eat when you are dead. So don't ever laugh as a hearse goes by, or you may be the next to die. It's definitely a dark one. Let's see. Let's see what else we've got here. I'm also going to, through October, I'm going to read a couple other books of the scary stories. Here's the thing about my beautiful scary stories collection, though. I had all three. I bought them in a box set on Amazon, and I can put a link to them in my description if you want to purchase them for yourself. But my son took one of them down to read at a bonfire with one of his friends, and little bad friends decided to throw his book into the fire. So we were missing one book in the collection, and I hope that it's not my favorite one. I can't remember which one had been burnt, but I'm going to have to replace that somewhere. Let's see what else we've got here. High beams. This is the picture for the story called High Beams. How long do I have? 3 minutes? I think I can read in 3 minutes. A girl was driving the old blue sedan was a senior. The girl driving the old blue sedan was a senior at a high school. She lived on a farm about 8 miles away, and she used the car to drive back and forth. She had driven into town that night to see a basketball game. Now she was on her way home. As she pulled away from school, she noticed a red pickup truck follow her out of the parking lot. A few minutes later, the truck was still behind her. I guess we're going in the same direction, she thought. She began to watch the truck in her mirror. When she changed her speed, the driver truck changed his. When she passed a car, so did he. Then he turned on his high beams, flooding her car with light. He left them on for almost a minute. He probably wants to pass me. But she was becoming uneasy. Usually she drove home over a back road. Not too many people went that way. When she turned onto the road, so did the truck. I've got to get away from him, she thought. She began to drive faster, and then he turned his high beams on again. After a minute, he turned them off. Then he turned them on again and off again. She drove even faster, but the truck driver stayed right behind her. Then he turned his high beams on again once more, and it was ablaze with light. What is he doing? She wondered. What does he want? Then he turned them off again, but a minute later, he had them on again, and he left them on. At last, she pulled into her driveway, and the truck pulled right behind her. She jumped from the car and ran into the house and called the police. She screamed at her father out in the driveway. She screamed at her father. Call the police, she screamed at her father out in the driveway. She could see the driver of the truck. He had a gun in his hand. When the police arrived, they started to arrest him. Then he pointed to the girl's car. You don't want me, he said. You want him. Crouched behind the driver's seat, there was a man with a knife. As the driver of the truck explained it, the man slipped into the girl's car just before she left school, and he saw it happen. There was no way he could stop it. He thought about getting the police, but he was afraid to leave her, so he followed her car. Each time the man in the back seat reached up over to overpower her, the driver of the truck turned on his high beams, and the man would drop down, afraid that someone might see him. So, that's all the time that we have today. I hope you enjoyed your creepy stories, and I hope you still sleep